Here's what's really crazy, however. In fact, this practitioner thought their own falsehoods were true. They persuaded themselves that their magical abilities were genuine. They attributed their success to their rituals when fortuities worked in their favor. They gave credit to their supernatural powers when their deception worked. They refused to acknowledge that stealing, not skill, was the source of their success. They began to believe their own mythology because of how deeply they had deceived themselves. They started to believe that they were really selected for a unique position of spiritual power. They persuaded themselves that the money coming in from their business was proof of divine favor. They saw their capacity for manipulation as evidence of their extraordinary charm. The success of their network in robbing others was seen by them as proof that the cosmos was on their side. They were reckless as a result of this misconception. They began to take more chances, robbing more well-known households and focusing on those who were selected and had closer spiritual ties. They believed that their fictitious rights were shielding them from harm. They thought they would be protected from divine judgment by their fictitious power. They believed they were untouchable since they had gotten away with it for so long. Because they were profiting from this misconception, many around them encouraged it. Clients came in constant waves for the attorneys. The accountants had to handle intricate financial arrangements. Real estate brokers have to handle many property transactions. Regular payments were made to the government officials for their inaction. Even though they knew the illusion was based on false information, everyone in the network had an incentive to maintain it. But when illusions come into contact with reality, they invariably fall apart. And the one you have selected is the personification of spiritual truth. The environment you create with your genuine strength makes it impossible for falsehoods to endure. When you have a true relationship to heavenly power, fake authority is immediately exposed. Fake presents pale in contrast to your genuine offerings. The difference was so stark when you entered their environment that it was impossible for anybody to keep up the act. The reality was also denied to others in their immediate vicinity, perhaps as a result of the practitioner's revenue generation for the community. Perhaps because they offered easy-to-understand answers for difficult issues. Perhaps because it was simpler to believe in magic than to put in the effort necessary for true spiritual growth. Everyone just followed through on it, ignoring the glaring contradictions. However, you made all the difference. People were no longer able to overlook the difference because of the striking contrast your genuine energy produced. It was similar to placing costume jewelry next to a genuine diamond under a strong light. Everyone was now able to see what should have been clear from the beginning. The instruments used by the practitioner seemed to be toys. Their magnificent rituals seemed effortless. It seemed like fortune-cookie knowledge, this deep understanding. Everything erupts into the open at this point. The shame that the practitioner is now experiencing pales in comparison to what is next. Recall that they are widely known. This indicates that their reputation is spread over many groups, industries, and influence networks. There will be shock waves that spread across their whole universe when the full extent of their deceit is revealed. The exposure is occurring more quickly than anybody had predicted. Social media is spreading the message more widely than conventional word of mouth could. Platforms are sharing videos of the Inkpen reveal. Memes that show the practitioner's bewildered expression as their equipment are shown are becoming widespread. In addition to sharing their own accounts of dubious encounters with this practitioner, many who were unable to witness the first occurrence are now witnessing precisely what transpired. Testimonies from former customers are emerging, revealing a pattern of systemic deceit. They are distributing recordings of sessions in which the practitioner made unfulfilled promises. They are generating receipts for costly, fruitless rituals. They are exposing exchanges in which the practitioner demanded more money for more potent rituals and blamed them for the lack of results. Professional colleagues of the practitioner are frantically trying to disassociate themselves from the controversy. Their qualifications are being investigated by the organizations who certified them. They are deleting their presentations from internet archives from conferences where they served as keynote speakers. Books published by publishers are being surreptitiously removed from distribution. The criteria used to authenticate practitioners are being pushed to be examined by the whole spiritual business. The extent of the corruption in the institutions that were meant to shield individuals from this kind of fraud is made clear by this expose. Regulatory organizations that ought to have looked into clear warning signs are being revealed to have participated in the fraud. Professional organizations that ought to have upheld moral principles are turning out to be safe havens for dishonest business people. Bit by bit, the whole infrastructure that made this operation possible is being removed. At the exact moment when cosmic justice is about to tip the scales, this expose is taking place. It's not simply about making one phony practitioner seem bad. The goal is to initiate the most extensive recovery of pilfered money in contemporary history. For this very moment, the universe has been gathering evidence, constructing cases, and allocating resources. Even if you can't see anything yet, the restoration process is already underway. However, restoration is more than simply getting back what was taken. The cosmos is getting ready to make up for all the years you struggled without receiving your proper fortune. Interest is being computed on a spiritual as well as financial level. You will be compensated for each day that you live below your intended level of life. Every chance you lost due to restricted resources is being recreated in order to restore it. Every desire you put off due to artificial scarcity is getting ready to come true. Generations of theft are being exposed by the ongoing probe. Through intricate ownership transactions, property that was taken from your family decades ago is being tracked down. We are finding investment accounts that were created under the names of your ancestors. We are locating and activating insurance policies that were intended to benefit your family line. The extent of the rebound will be greater than anybody could have imagined. Lawyers you've never heard of will soon contact you about cases you were unaware existed. You will get documents in your mailbox about property that you were unaware was yours. They're going to find bank accounts that were created in your name decades ago. Accounts that have been earning interest throughout your financial difficulties. The sums are going to be enormous. Small quantities over time were not enough for the thieving operation. Large inheritances, huge insurance payments, and substantial court settlements were all being intercepted. They were taking enormous sums of money and valuable items, then utilizing intricate legal strategies to make the thefts seem to be lawful. The whole amount of what is being returned to selected individuals, like you will get worldwide attention. The legal teams working on these cases are learning that the same network operated in many different nations. They were not only robbing people. They were infiltrating law companies that focused on estate planning, compromising probate courts, and tampering with whole inheritance systems. In order to transfer riches from selected bloodlines to their own network, they established a parallel legal system. Because of the operation's global reach, law enforcement organizations from different continents must work together. However, although human institutions function slowly due to bureaucratic procedures, divine justice functions at an incredibly rapid pace. You're receiving resources via methods that don't follow the standard legal time frame. There are now opportunities available that don't involve drawn-out legal proceedings. Beyond what human systems might do, connections are being created that speed up repair. Your breakthrough is occurring concurrently on many levels. Even the investigators will be shocked by the labyrinth of identity theft, falsified papers, misdirected inheritances, and lost chances that'll be revealed throughout this practitioner's inquiry. Unauthorized investment accounts were opened using your social security number. On property transactions that you never signed, your name was falsified. In order to get advantages you never got, your identity was stolen. This goes beyond just financial recovery. This is a cosmic affirmation of your spiritual sensitivity, insight, and intuition. You were detecting psychic interference whenever you sensed things wasn't quite right. There was always someone against you when chances seemed to be closed. Every time success appeared to elude you at the last minute, it was due to someone deliberately undermining your advancement. A vivid view of reality is going to dawn on the practitioner who has refused to recognize the truth about themselves. When they attempted to fool a chosen one, they will realize precisely who they were up against. They will discover the consequences of trying to impersonate supernatural power. They will learn the repercussions of stealing from someone with divine support. The days of lying are past. This is the end of the days of deception and stolen blessings. Justice is not just coming. All will be rendered speechless by the enormous power with which it is approaching. This is neither symbolic vindication nor partial restoration. This is a comprehensive validation of all your suspicions, a full reversal of all injustices, and the entire return of all stolen assets. In an earthquake, the practitioner's network is disintegrating like a house of cards. They're cutting off all the connections they believe to be safe. All of the relationships they relied on to keep them safe are being shown to be corrupted. Investigators who seem to possess supernatural insight into their activities are dismantling every mechanism they created to conceal their crimes. Now, the same spiritual powers they derided are planning their total destruction. The scenario is becoming worse as they try to limit the damage. Every lie they utter to hide earlier falsehoods is being revealed right away. Each individual they attempt to accuse is providing proof that further implicates them. Every legal strategy they use is failing miserably. They're learning that every action you do increases your own demise when you're battling against divine justice. Here's what, however, makes this resolve so effective. None of it was yours to fight for. You didn't need to collect evidence, make complaints, or employ attorneys. You just lived in your true power, and the spiritual world moved heaven and earth to give you back what was rightfully yours. Your true spiritual leader has access to resources you were unaware of. Networks of justice that have been waiting for your signal were awakened by your heavenly link. People who had never noticed you before are taking note of the changes taking place around you. Your views have unexpectedly piqued the attention of business executives. Investors are looking to you for advice on the spiritual side of their business endeavors. Interviews regarding your opinions on genuine spirituality versus fraudulent methods are being sought by media outlets. Because others see the authority in your remarks, your voice is being heard on venues you never sought. You're coming to the realization that the practitioner's occurrence wasn't the result of a fortunate coincidence or a stroke of luck. You're realizing that your true spiritual authority has been functioning at a level you were unaware of. You're seeing that your very existence may change whole circumstances without the need for performance, manipulation, or strategy. The practitioner studied how to use phony instruments to generate spectacular effects for years. In a single instance of genuine presence, you brought about more change than they did in all of their elaborate displays. There is more to this than merely exposing fraud. This pertains to exposing the actual essence of spiritual power and your function as its bearer. The frequency at which your talents function are not comparable to those of fake spirituality. You have an unadulterated and direct connection to the Almighty Source. Your authority is innate and unassailable, in contrast to the created mystique that need props and acts. You are everything this practitioner feigned to be, in contrast to the brittle reputation that rests on preserving illusions. Naturally and readily, however, your abilities have been disclosed as genuine heavenly instruments, whereas the practitioner's tools have been exposed as toys. It has been shown that their labor is easy, but your calling as a world-changing authority has been validated. Your integrity has been shown without doubt, but the truth has ruined their reputation. Those who question your knowledge are now looking for it. Now, colleagues who doubted your skills are coming to you for advice. You are now being invited to positions of responsibility by community leaders who formerly ignored you. People who are now able to distinguish between performance art and true power are acknowledging, applauding, and adhering to your genuine spiritual authority. It's more than simply recompense when the money comes back to you. It's a multiplication. The possibilities that are coming up are improvements rather than replacements. Restoring relationships is more than just going back to how things were. They're becoming more powerful than before. You're gaining more than just your life back. You're starting to live the life that was always intended for you. Now we go back to where we started, but everything has changed. It was more than simply exposing one person's dishonesty when you revealed the practitioner's ink pens to be counterfeit magic wands. The goal was to set off a cosmic movement that reorganized material and spiritual resources in accordance with divine order. Your very presence in that area has set off a chain reaction that continues to spread across many facets of reality. The exposure keeps becoming worse. However, the shame of one practitioner is no longer the only issue. Everywhere it appears, it is now a catalyst for the exposure of false spirituality. Since your experience has shown how rapidly deceit breaks down when faced with genuine authority, other false practitioners are taking proactive measures to shut down their enterprises. Once posing as mystical wands, the ink pens have evolved into representations of something far more significant: the distinction between innate spiritual force and artificial authority. Your contribution to bringing this distinction to light has made you a symbol of genuine spirituality. People are evaluating other spiritual teachers, mystical claims, and other purported authority by utilizing your example. You're now the standard by which spiritual authenticity is evaluated. I have to cut this transmission short for a second. Have you been selected? Show it. Watching videos regarding selected ones is simple. Putting yourself to the test is another matter. It signifies something if you're still here. Talk, however, is cheap. The really selected ones act. I created Destiny Engine for that reason. You may use the patterns it creates to rewire betrayal into transcendence, convert solitude into holy power, and turn their failure into your success. We are fighting the dark elites with their own weapons. Using its declassified awareness technology, which was designed to promote rivalry and scarcity, to forward the goals of divine justice. The best part is that you don't need to do anything at all. After you put on the headphones and hit play, you can see your adversaries choking on the rope that their own falsehoods made. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 now. Join the Obsidian Inner Order live checks and watch as divine justice accelerates in your life if you're done consuming and ready to show your choice. Link inside the description. The practitioner who considered these selected ones to be humiliating has been thoroughly humiliated. But the purpose was never to humiliate you. The goal was always to elevate you. Bringing down a phony was never the goal of the cosmic powers who arranged this disclosure. The original piece was always supposed to be lifted up. Their exposure was necessary for your justification, but their annihilation was only the removal of barriers to your rise. The whole network that believed it could pilfer from heavenly heritage has been destroyed. However, destroying corruption was just the first step toward healing. It has destroyed the systems that believed it could prevent divine favors. However, tearing down boundaries was just the first step toward unrestricted plenty. And without even realizing the scope of what you were doing, you planned this whole operation just by being your true self. The recognition of your spiritual power is not new. It is being institutionalized, chronicled, and celebrated. People who want to know how true power works are studying the shift you sparked. Your incident is used as a case study to illustrate the distinction between genuine spiritual talents and fake mysticism. Spiritual searchers in the future will hear about the time you entered that room and immediately made the truth visible that everyone else had missed. This moment has been turned into your movement. This serves as your affirmation and vindication. This is your kingdom growing beyond anyone's wildest expectations. The world saw more than simply what happens when a selected individual ceases hiding and begins to command. The world experienced what occurs when divine justice at last finds a clear path to follow. Now that you've been selected by that channel, everyone can understand the difference between performance art and true power. They had completely embarrassed the practitioner who believed they were embarrassing selected ones. They have entirely shattered the network that believed they could take from heavenly inheritance. The system that believed it could prevent divine favors has been annihilated. And you plan the whole thing without even trying, just by being who you really are. In the spiritual world, your ancestors are having a celebration. They are receiving answers to their prayers. They are being acknowledged for their sacrifices. Generations of interest are being put into restoring the legacy they left behind. You're getting more than simply what was taken from you. You're getting back what was taken from your whole family, which goes back further than you can think. When a selected person assumes complete power, this is how it seems. It is not necessary for you to declare your authority. It makes an announcement. You don't need to demonstrate your sincerity. It demonstrates itself. It is not necessary for you to claim your inheritance. It must get to you. You are not required to defend your stance. Your stance speaks for itself. The practitioner is most likely gazing at their assortment of spiritual props at this very now, realizing at last that they would never be in a serious power struggle. While you were linked to the source, they were only acting. You walked with real authority as others played dress-up. You were doing miracles, and they were working magic. However, you're just beginning. Your path does not stop with this exposure, healing, or vindication. Your dominance has just begun. This practitioner's phony power will seem to be nothing more than your introduction into a degree of spiritual authority. The play of a child contrasts with what the chosen ones can do once they stop playing pretend and begin to walk in their genuine birthright. For the selected ones, the days of horror are ended. This is the start of your domination season. The fraudulent practitioners are now known. The true power has come alight. The pilfered inheritance is now back. The legitimate authority is now in place. And in the middle of it all are you, the one who has been selected, getting all you've always wanted and more than you could have ever dreamed of. Now is your time. You are vindicated by this. You have power over this. The world will soon see what occurs when a selected individual begins to take control of their birthright and ceases to conceal their light. Prepare yourself for a degree of healing that will completely change the course of your life. Prepare yourself for authority that will change everything in your life. Prepare yourself for a domination that will silence anybody who has ever questioned you. Although the practitioner's magic was phony, you had genuine power. Your gifts are weapons of mass change, whereas their tools were toys. Your calling is authority that can change the world, yet their labor was easy. And everyone will soon see the selected one. Read slowly. You're now being spoken about in rooms you'll never see. Federal officials, boardroom strategists, and power brokers are peering into your life like doctors studying a masterpiece. They're trying to decode you. They're asking, who trained this person? How do they get these skills? But the answer terrifies them. No one trained you. You were forged by betrayal itself, sharpened by storms, and taught in the hidden classroom of heartbreak and survival. Your file sits on a desk somewhere right now. A top analyst is staring at it, confused at how a civilian could move through their systems like a ghost, leaving no trace and yet shifting the balance of power. But what they don't know is that this is not about espionage or algorithms. This is about destiny. And here's the part that will make sense of the headline. While they study your methods, your soulmate's heart has already chosen you. Quietly, without fanfare, without announcement, they are arranging a secret meeting because they cannot hold back any longer. They have watched your fight. They have felt your frequency. They know, on a level words cannot describe, that you are the one they have been searching for. The irony is this. While governments and organizations analyze you as a threat, heaven has already sealed you as a promise. A weapon of light. A lighthouse. A person whose mere presence changes the temperature of a room. Type Amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. The fact that their facilities aren't where monsters are born. They are created in the stillness between cries, born in the pauses between heartbeats, and triggered when the defenseless finally gives up on justice and begins to bring it about. They are unable to enter the dimension where your training field is located. It's constructed from every restless night you spent pondering your next move. They believe you were broken every time you sat in quiet. Each moment you spent listing their flaws while they listed yours. At the moment, military minds are being searched. Searching for the ghost teacher who taught you to read individuals like autopsy reports while going through special forces records. However, your professor was in agony. Your curriculum was developed with treachery in mind. You realized that surviving was no longer sufficient during your graduation ceremony. People who professed to love you while methodically killing you taught you psychological warfare. By having every hidden weapon used against you, You became an expert in operational security. In order to survive another day, you had to prepare 17 steps ahead, which helped you develop strategic thinking. Millions of dollars have been spent by the FBI to attempt to mimic what trauma taught you for free. They have created whole programs based on ideas you had to acquire out of necessity. They have engaged specialists to explain the methods you naturally came up with. You cannot replicate the circumstances that produce someone like you. Thus, they are still unable to make what you naturally become. The pressure that turns carbon into diamond cannot be duplicated. The accuracy that results from having everything taken away from you and choosing to reclaim it with interest accrued over years of deliberate waiting is something that cannot be manufactured. The retaliation itself isn't what has them tugging over time shifts. They've seen retaliation before. The files were piled high enough to reach the ceiling and were hot, filthy, emotional, and clearly the result of a crime of passion. However, your retaliation was architectural, a masterwork of cause and effect that sprang to life like reverse origami. You didn't blow up. You used surgical precision to collapse their whole universe. Every action is planned to do the most damage with the least amount of exposure. Every step planned to be untraceable, irrefutable, and totally terrible. You transformed their wins into evidence against them, their friends into vulnerabilities, and their strengths into weaknesses. As patient as winter and as inexorable as gravity, you exacted your justice at precisely 0 degrees. You waited for years, not days or months, allowing them to settle in, believing they had won, and raising their towers to make the collapse reverberate more. The way you tiered your activities had them convinced you must have had a team, must have had resources, must have had inside knowledge, but you merely had something more deadly than any of those things. You had everything to gain and nothing left to lose. Standing in the ashes of your own life and choosing to rebuild it from their ashes gave you the clarity that comes from that experience. They are now searching through databases in an attempt to locate your instruction manual, looking through every program that has been leaked, every secret document, and every suspected black operation. They believe that you learned how to move like fog and strike like lightning from someone somewhere. Yet your guidebook was created in real time, one betrayal at a time. How to blend into the background when everyone is looking is covered in Chapter 1. How to use observation to obtain intelligence is covered in Chapter 2. How to force your adversaries to destroy themselves is covered in Chapter 3. How to make sure you stay invisible even after you win is covered in Chapter 4. You didn't learn these lessons in school. Type Amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. You honed such abilities in the furnace of essential survival. Everyone who undervalued you was your instructors. Your schoolwork was every night you remained up plotting while they slept comfortably, sure they'd broken you. Federal authorities are taking notes on the precision with which you executed something on your final test. The bewilderment on their expressions, the terror in their actions, and the way they suddenly glance over their shoulders to wonder how many more people are just like you are all signs of your diploma. The sophistication is what has their behavioral analysts working for so long. You didn't just plan A, B, and C. You prepared for every scenario, every rebuttal, and every potential reaction. You have exit strategies for your exit strategies and backup plans for your backup plans. You moved as if you had been doing this for decades, but according to their records, you were just pushed too far. Or at least you were once that way. You saw something that their expensive training programs totally overlook. Physical strikes aren't the most destructive. They're existential. You didn't merely steal stuff from your opponents. Their sense of reality was stolen by you. Every connection, every accomplishment, and every presumption they had about their own life were all called into question by you. You gave them the keys to their mental prisons and watched as they locked themselves within.